Oh, we're rolling? Love it. Love it. Just remember, make her look good. Nobody's going to look at me anyway. Dr. Milicia McDowell, welcome.
Thank you.
How
Happy to be
fun.
here. Yes.
Super excited to have you in here. You've been on a whirlwind.
I have. I'm not quite sure where I'm waking up most days.
You're in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa right now.
Thank you.
But you don't live here.
No.
You guys you're on like a full-on jaunt. You were just telling me about having Peyton Manning behind you on a plane. You've been in Europe. You've been doing a lot because you have this book right here. Giant congratulations. You guys haven't been out a full month and you're already a national bestseller. You were just telling me about, and we'll talk a lot about it, but overseas, but incredible. Let me stop for a second. You're like my perfect favorite kind of guest because all the things that you do, you would ask me earlier, well, who's your real, target audience? I'm like, it's people like me. I say it's people that are looking for peak performance, help, ideas, concepts, how to raise the bar, whether it be in business or in nonprofits or in sport. And what you've talked about here really crosses all of that. And then you, with your background, and we'll talk a lot, your brag sheet is as long as my leg, and I get to share that, which will be fun. But really incredible, this book, and what I've learned about it, we'll talk a lot about, is what it provides to humanity. Not just, right? Like, it's called Walk. What's the whole title?
Walk. I don't know the subtitle. Rediscover the most natural way to boost your health and longevity, one step at a time. Which is funny because the original title for it was called Walk Your Life Depends on It, which felt really urgent. Hey, pay attention to this, or you're gonna die. And as we were going through, my co-author's name is Dr. Courtney Conley. She's a chiropractor based in Colorado. And as we were going through the process with editor, agent, publishing, there's a lot of stakeholders. Writing a book is a team sport. Our editor came along at some point and said, so ladies, I know you love this idea, your life depends on it, but for the purposes of SEO, we need to change that. And so the subtitle is very long, but it has a bunch of really sexy words in it, like health and longevity. Yeah.
But, and again, we'll get in there quite a bit. But do you believe in that original subtitle, that your life depends on it?
Yes, and our UK publisher let us keep it.
Oh, interesting. All right, so you changed it based on recommendations or requirements of editors, publishers, et cetera. But the reality is your viewpoint of the importance of walking, still is that paramount, that your life depends on.
Absolutely. It is one of those self-care activities that you have immediate payoff. There's longevity payoff. And if you really unpack what it can do for your mental health and your physical health, and then our community and public health, there's really no better way to characterize it. And so that's why when we were in the process, it takes 2 years to write a book, by the way. So when we were in the process of going through the development of this project, it had a lot of importance that we really were getting that message across that this isn't like optional. This is something that we all need to reframe. We need to think about it in a different light because it does have this capacity to change your well-being and how long you live, which to me is sort of the pinnacle of what we're all trying to do, right? I want to live a really long time and go out with flames and fireworks and a band and whatever it may be, right?
Well, it's really interesting, and we'll get deep into it because I think you're like, walk. It's not sexy. You think about all the things on our feeds and all the things that maybe captivate us, social media, or at least in my feed, it's lots of ultra endurance stuff. That's the stuff, what you follow follows you. And so for me, you hear walk and you're like, everybody fucking walks. Like, how is it that important? But what you're saying is, and this is, I think, the paradigm shifting aspect of your book is how wildly important it is and how it's super overlooked and under prioritized. So really interesting, especially from somebody that's probably overloaded my body for so long thinking I need to do more.
Yep.
And some of it is, no, just do it less and do it better and be more intelligent about it. So I'm really excited to talk about it. And also, as you mentioned in the book and as you mentioned to me offline, like there's so many other benefits that come from this simple practice. But there's all kinds of other things I took away from it. I was like, okay, never thought of that. We'll get there. But one of the things that's really interesting is, not interesting, but like I always think about, and we'll talk about how you got to this point that writing a book was in your wheelhouse, like why this was so important for you. So let me just share kind of who's in the room for a second, because I think that sets it up. And it's a long list, but it's really impressive. And it, like, we can talk about, like, especially in this day of everybody being an expert, right? Everybody in my social media feed is an expert, which is, I think, part of the problem and part of the reason that a book like this from two experts, real, certified with all the education to back it, because everybody claims something. And I think a lot of us get lost in, well, what's the right modality? What should I be doing? What shouldn't I be doing? What should I be taking? What shouldn't I? Like, there's so much noise, and everybody paints it as being expert driven and certified because they believe in it. But when you have you and Dr. Connolly co-authoring this book, so here's your backstory. Not only are you a doctor of PT, but you have your master's, you have your doctorate in PT, right?
Yep.
You've got more acronyms like behind your name. It's really incredible. So let me just go through it. So you're a PT, MSPT, which is Movement Systems Physical Therapist, Doctor of Physical Therapy. You have your master's in physical therapy, doctorate in physical therapy, and you're getting your MBA at USC right now?
Yeah, fight on.
My God.
I sure am. You know, I've been in business for a long time, and I recognize I don't have formal finance, accounting, and modeling training. And I also have a day job. And in my day job, what I'm seeing is that the folks at the tier above me are MBAs, or they're coming from, you know, like operating very large organizations. You know, the biggest P&L I've ever been semi-responsible for is 25 million. And I think to some people listening, they're like, holy cow, that's huge. And some people are like, yeah, mice nuts, right. You know?
Mice nuts. Is that something from Montana? Mice
no,
nuts.
my old boss and mentor, she used to say that, meaning it was itty bitty.
Got it.
Mice nuts.
Well, listen, there's way more to it. I mean, some of the things that stood out. In 2023, you were recognized as one of the top 50 women in healthcare. That's no small feat, right? And you've talk a bit about your day job, because again, all of this frames where we're going, and again, who's in the room.
Yep. So I currently sit as the Associate Vice President of Education at U.S. Physical Therapy. U.S. Physical Therapy is the third largest physical therapy delivery company in the country. We're traded on the NASDAQ. We will deliver 6 million visits of physical therapy this year in 44 states. So
I'm one of those. My whole family is backing that up significantly.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. But before that, I've worked in international medical education. I've been a university faculty. And then at home in Montana, my husband Paul and I have owned a physical therapy practice, a medical equipment company, a fitness center, and a CrossFit. So lots of entrepreneurial endeavors. I even made fake IDs in college. So I think that spirit started kind of early. I think the statute of limitations has passed, so happy to disclose that.
That's so good. When I hear or see the number of things that people like you accomplish and that you're still going, you're like, oh, people above me have these other acronyms behind. I want to be an MBA, so I'm going to go to SC and get that while I have all these other things going on. One word, underachiever.
Yeah.
Like, and we'll talk about how do you, like, you can giggle about it, but to be that productive and that capable and handle that capacity while having a family, having a career, having a social life, having a fitness life, like, it's a lot to manage. And I think a lot of people go, how? Right? Because people are like, I can barely like get up and do what I need to do on a given day, let alone add all this additional load. And again, load comes in a lot of ways, especially in your world. I talk about load, we were talking load offline. Physical load over time takes a real impact on our bodies, but emotional or workload does as well. And I'm guessing some of what you guys shine a light on in this is to how to manage all of that. So really, really cool and interesting. And there are so many quotes and nice things said about you and just what you provide and how you do it in the world. Very, very cool. But this is the part I always enjoy. I always think that people will know of you from your book, from the many, many podcasts and interviews that you're doing right now, because I know I'm not first on your list. I know you've done quite a few. With some of the people you've been interviewed by recently are like some of the people I listen to all the time. So congratulations on that. You and Dr. Connolly, who seems rad, by the way. So I look forward to talking about, learning more about how you guys got together and worked together on this book. But I'm always curious about the Wayback Machine. Like, what created this drive in you not only to go down the road that you're on, but just to have the kind of drive to do all the things that we've talked about. So talk a little bit about like, where did you grow up? And because I want to see how it got you to where you are today.
The total arc of the story.
The Wayback Machine is the
I'm an
fun part.
Alaskan,
Really?
and I grew up in the middle of nowhere. Only child, valedictorian, captain of the basketball team, all those sorts of things. Wait, salutatorian.
Where
somebody
in
beat me.
Alaska?
I'm from Soldotna, Alaska.
Where's that?
Middle of nowhere. If you go to Anchorage and you drive for like 3 hours south-ish, you eventually end up there.
Okay, but how did your family end up there?
Parents are from Pittsburgh, and my dad was in the Air Force. He got stationed up there around the Vietnam era, and he's a big outdoorsman, pilot, guide, boat,
Badass.
fish. Yeah, big Alaska guy. So he loved it. My mother wasn't quite as sure that she wanted to spend her life in Alaska, but very quickly after they moved there in the 1970s, there's some really epic photos of her with like Cher hair. It's like parted down the middle. It's super long. She's wearing overalls. They're driving a Volkswagen Bug. And so they really had this incredible 40-year life in Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah, so I grew up there and then worked my way down south. If you're from Alaska, if any Alaskans are listening, we call it outside or the lower 48. And so I moved outside to Montana for undergrad, Colorado for grad school. I did couple years in Laguna Beach, which I absolutely loved, and then returned back to Montana.
Got it.
Yeah.
So living in nowhere, middle of nowhere, and then moving outside.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm trying to
outside.
get the vernacular right here. What was life like for you when you have parents that are kind of badass up there, dad's full Alaskan outdoorsy? Like, what did that do or mean to you growing up?
You know, when your dad goes, hey, you want to hop in the plane and go look at bears? You want to go clam digging and you go in a tiny boat into an inlet in the middle of nowhere? I think you become really inspired by individuality. And I think you recognize that you're this itty bitty little tiny speck in this humongous world. And for me, it really put into perspective that I wanted to do something big. You know, like I recognized from growing up in somewhere that is so massive and is so dangerous that you really have to work hard to make an impact. And so for me, that sort of rugged growing up experience gave me that perspective of being like, wow, like I really feel like I need to have a strong potential to make a difference. And when you grow up in a state that is just like so gigantic and it sounds dramatic, but it's like a moose could squish you and a bear could munch you and you could fall in a river and freeze to death. Like it's a bit of it's not like growing up in
Here?
You
can say it. It's all
yeah,
right.
I mean, not that.
I think she just called all of us here in Southern California soft.
I'm going to get kicked out of USC.
I think you're actually right.
Yeah. So, but it gives you this perspective that you're kind of tiny. And then for me, it really inspired me to be like, all right, well, how do I get big? Like, how do I do something that makes a big impact? And, being an only child and having a lot of time where you sort of can choose to be individual or put other people in your environment. Like I was a huge reader and I did all these academic competitions and academics and education became something that I really prioritized. And that sort of got me into that next phase of moving outside and going to college and being like, all right, what do I want to do now?
So when you're thinking about doing something big
Yeah.
for the reasons you just explained, where did that take you? Like did you know, like when you went to college, did you know your path? Like, did you already have a vision for the world that you're in today? Or you just knew you wanted to do something big and you got to undergrad and tried to figure it out? Like, what did that look like for you?
One of my favorite moments of undergrad, I went to the university. I had this big academic scholarship and I was getting terrible grades. I took a 180. I was this like perfect student in high school and all these accolades, great behavior. And I rolled into university and I was like, oh, nobody's forcing me.
I'm not all that. Oh.
No, nobody's forcing me to get out of bed and go to calculus 5 days a week at 8 a.m. And so I took a little bit of an academic dive early on in undergrad and I was pre-med. I was in a pre-physical therapy.
Okay, but you were already
Yes.
on that track.
I was, yeah. I had a pretty devastating athletic injury in high school where I missed a year and a half of sports. And so I had my track coach rehabbed me essentially. And so I learned about rehab and physical therapy through him, which is when I decided that was an academic track I wanted to take. I wanted to be a healthcare provider. I wanted to be able to give back that kind of care to others. And so I went to university, I was pre-physical therapy, and I was absolutely driving my GPA into the trash. And I went in to meet with my advisor, and he looked me in the eyes and he goes, "You're never gonna be a physical therapist. You need to change your major."
Oh, and what was your response to that?
And so I did.
Oh.
Yeah. So I majored in PE for 2 years. My mom's a gym teacher. And my mom is a beloved gym teacher. She's in her later 70s. She still gets Christmas cards from students. She has abs. She walks like 2.5 miles a day. She lifts weights. She goes to Zumba. Like, she's crushing it. And so I was like, oh, my mom's a gym teacher, and maybe I should just be a gym teacher. And that's no shade to gym teachers. It just seemed like a progression that was going to be perhaps more in my academic wheelhouse per this professor who said I'd never be a physical therapist. And so I was like, all right. So I majored in PE for a couple years. And I recognized that my analytics side and my, problem solving side that cup wasn't getting filled. Like, I love being a PE teacher, and I got to student teach a little, and I really enjoyed it. It felt like summer camp, right? I thought it was great, but it wasn't quite challenging enough for me. So I switched advisors, and I found a new advisor
that believed in you a little bit more?
He did, actually. He was like, oh, well, you can be a physical therapist. He did say, you're going to get into a crap school. Oh. He's like, with these grades, like, good luck. But at least he did sort of steer me back onto the path that I could do that as a profession.
So when you said, my advisor said, oh, you're never going to make it, I thought you were going to say, I've grown up in Alaska with moose that can squish me and bears that can eat me, and I can freeze in a river. Watch me. Mm-mm. I thought you would have pushed back.
No.
But you ended up on that track anyway.
Yep.
But I also, I find it interesting. This is the part that I find fun. Like, I always call it connecting the dots. Like, you talk about your mom, who's still a badass, your dad, in a different way.
Yep.
So, super into fitness, always was. You had this injury as a kid that kind of got you into that mindset, like, ooh, I want to do this. I want to help others like I've been helped. And here you are. Like, there's always some catalyst, right? And that's what I'm always curious about. And you can start to see, like, this pathway that took you. So, all right. So did you get into a crap school, or did you get into a good school?
So when I was a faculty for 9 years in exercise science, on faculty with the guy who told me I'd never be a physical therapist. Nonetheless, he was still there. And I did not choose to remind him of that. I took the high road.
Have you sent him a copy of this book yet?
I didn't, but I did mention him in the acknowledgments.
Interesting.
In a very
way?
Very encrypted way. I mentioned that I had to the professor who told me I'd never be a physical therapist. Thank you for the additional fuel. I didn't need it, which is true. And so let's see. Where
I
are we
always
headed?
say, it's interesting on that. I always say, people have heard me say it every single time. Like, I always believe that we're influenced by our best coaches, teachers, mentors, et cetera, and our worst.
Yes.
Everybody in between, I say it all the time. It's kind of vanilla, but you learn as much from the bad coach or the bad advisor as you do from the good ones or the bad experiences. I talk to my kids about this all the time. Like, you learn as much from these really challenging experiences. And a lot of people say, a lot of wildly successful people say you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. So if somebody pushes you, that flame's going to be there. There's probably many teachers or advisors you've forgotten about. You won't forget about that guy.
No.
Right?
Yep. No. He's burned in. And as a faculty, it really gave me this great perspective of, I would never say that to a student, first of all. And second, like, I have no idea how motivated that person is, what their resources is, how much grit they have. That translates to being a healthcare provider. So if you come in and see me and you have this crazy injury, am I going to say to you, oh, Mark, you're never going to walk again? Why would I put that into your headspace? So inappropriate. And so it really was this sort of foundational moment in my life where I was like, huh. And at the time, being 18, away from home, living in the dorms,
Living outside.
Yeah, living outside. I moved outside, wanting to, continue to impress everyone academically. I was like, well, shoot, if this guy who's my advisor says I'm not cut out for it, I must not be cut out for it. Perhaps this identity of being this excellent student and wanting to do something big is maybe some sort of a false situation. So it was really good. Like, I don't think I'd be as determined in my professional life if that hadn't happened to me. So it's one of those things I'm grateful for, but also, it was a great example of what not to do as a faculty advisor.
Yeah. Again, we all learn from those.
Yep.
And it's always harrowing when you run into people, whether call it bedside manner or leadership skills or lack thereof. Like, there are just some things, especially these days. Like I always say, like when my dad was running his business back in the day, it was a very different approach. It was much more, I would call it like the GE model, where it was top down. You're always trying to, get rid of your lowest 20%. It was much more leadership driven, my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work in these days at all. And yet there's still people that live that way, my way or the highway. They kind of take this tyrannical approach. Man, you get a lot more with sugar than you do with salt, right?
Right.
Very cool. Well, listen, there's a lot more to it. So you, at some point, you get your master's, then you get your PhD,
doctorate,
right? Your
doctorate in
physical therapy. You keep on going to school, and I'm guessing you're working throughout. Just kind of walk us through the whole course and like why you continued on with your education.
Yep. So physical therapy education has changed, as have numerous other rehab specialties. So for example, occupational therapists and physical therapists, our terminal degree used to be master's level. And if you're my age, mid 40s to later 40s, some early 40s right now, if you're a practitioner in that age group, your terminal degree was master's. The doctorates didn't exist. And so for me, I got a master's at University of Colorado and had great experience there. Then I moved here to Laguna Beach and started working.
What brought you to Laguna?
My former husband. So he was a California guy, and that's the father of our daughter, who's 21 now. And we lived here for a couple of years and had a fantastic time.
Yeah. A little different than the middle of nowhere, Alaska.
Yeah, for sure. But I had transitioned through Denver. So it was like middle of nowhere, Alaska. I moved to Montana. I ended up in Denver for grad school. And then I came here and I was like, oh, okay, it's like Denver, but with an ocean. I mean, hey, this is amazing. And so I had a great experience living here. And being a practitioner, I really started to kind of like understand my role in the healthcare continuum, right? So a physical therapist is a mid-level. We're like a PA or a nurse practitioner. And we're always working with doctors, and we're sort of in between the doctors and the patients. And our role is to say, what are your goals? Great, let me help you achieve them, right? I really believe that's the inherent role of a physical therapist, occupational therapist. So when I got done with school, a master's was a terminal degree. Great, got a master's, got my license, started working. And then right around that time, so that's early 2000s, is when the doctorate came into physical therapy. And occupational therapy is just a couple years behind, so their doctorate came in sort of mid-2000s. And that became the new terminal degree. So then if you went from undergrad to grad school, you bypassed a master's.
Oh.
And so if you see PTs or OTs who have a master's and a doctorate, it basically means they were in that transition. Yeah, for sure. So all the DPT students right now no one has a master's anymore. And what's really interesting, historically, physical therapy is a profession that came out of nursing, and it came out of nurses who were rehabilitating soldiers who came back from World War II. And the specialized nurses became sort of like the rehab and physical nurses, and that's where the field of physical therapy came from. So initially, we were specialized nurses. Then there was bachelor's degree, master's, doctorate.
Oh, interesting.
And so for me, I was like, given that I wanted to do something big, one of my goals, on the bingo card my entire life was hold a terminal degree in your field. And so then when physical therapy went and got a doctorate, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to do that. So I went back and got a doctorate with a 1-year-old. She was not helpful in my thesis, but I knocked that out in 2006.
Got it.
So getting an MBA right now, I've been out of school for 20 years, and the average age of my MBA class is 31. It's 41% female. It's like about 10 or 15% international. So it's been a really, it's a very great mixed bag. It's been a really cool experience to go back into school 20 years later.
Has that been, do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy
I love school.
Oh, you do, okay. That also explains a fair bit of this, right?
I love school. I loved being a faculty. I also love being a student. I am in the USC's hybrid program, so it's called OMBUS. That USC has 3 types of MBAs, in-person, executive, and ours. And it just worked well since Paul and I live between Montana and Mexico. I couldn't really live in LA for 2 years and still have a day job in Houston and do all the things I'm trying to do. But I'm getting a fantastic experience. The faculty are absolutely phenomenal. I'm very proud of myself. I got an A in financial accounting, which...
Wow.
That was sort of my biggest academic triumph of my whole life.
That would be mine too, for sure.
Besides passing my PT board. So for me, like to answer your question, the educational thirst is something that I have promised my husband, this is my last degree. I'm not going back any further. Paul, I promise you, I'm done.
Paul's sitting over there. I believe her, do you?
Does he?
That was a 50-50 answer.
No, it's true. I'm done. I had a season of burnout in my physical therapy career and was pretty convinced I should go to law school. And I was really like considering this like full career shift, and my lawyer friends all talked me out of it.
I think it's wise when you have the kind of background that you do, like the full shift, partial shift makes sense, or additive shifts, like getting your MBA to further support your business.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. But like full pivot and starting fresh.
Yeah.
That would be some degree of burnout. But I mean, what's interesting is, so my degrees both had labs, which was way more time consuming than most of my friends that were in their normal non-lab.
Yeah.
Everything you've done historically has been lab.
Yep.
And because I've broken myself so many times and I live at physical therapy all the time. I was there last night. I always get conversations because I'm always being worked on, people that are going through PT school or chiropractic school or whatever. They're working their tails off. Mm-hmm. And most of them are getting their hours while they're doing it. So, I mean, I give kudos to anybody that's going through that. It's very demanding. There's a lot of physical aspects of it. And most of them are getting their hours while they're going through school. Like it's a full-time job plus.
It is. Yeah. So that's really what my corporate job is. So I'm the Associate Vice President of Education at US Physical Therapy. One of my main responsibilities is managing our student programming. So it is our responsibility as a large clinical operator to help with training for the students that are in their doctorate programs. 1/3 of physical therapy and OT school is in the clinic. And so they're in school 2/3 of the time, but 1/3 of that terminal education is me as a student in a clinic working on you. And that's a big part of what I do in my corporate days. And so it's real. Those students are taking neuroanatomy, and then they're taking cardiopulm, and then they're doing clinical rotations, and they have to be on their best behavior. It's a big ask for sure.
And it's only interesting to me because I spend so much time in that world. Who's like the candidate that you know is going to be great in that PT world or further?
Yep. So physical therapy education in the US graduates about 12,000 PTs a year. After the pandemic, there was a very large exodus in our field, and we lost about 16% of practitioners because they went and they were like, so many reasons, right? They didn't want to continue working in the field. Some became personal trainers, some went into cash pay environments, some had career shifts, et cetera. So we as a field are in a deficit of practitioners. So when I look at an ideal candidate who's gonna be a great physical therapist, are they a good communicator? Are they kind? Are they able to put people at ease? Are they able to connect with you and understand what you're actually trying to tell me is your goal? And so for me, I really prioritize character and communication. You can teach anybody how to manipulate an elbow or to assess a spine or to look at gait mechanics or see if there's enough extension in the big toe. Like those are tactical techniques that we can teach people, but you have to develop character and you have to develop the communication side. And so when I look at students who are successful, I feel like that's a huge characteristic of them.
It's interesting. I think you could change that tactic to selling something or customer service in a hardware store or anything. It comes back to culture, attitude, aptitude is important, but you got to be able to train on the cultural side and get them to fit, right? Kind of goes back to what I was saying about old business, new business, leadership. But yeah, I've had a lot of experience. I can think about really good practitioners and others outside of like their knowledge base, just like their bedside manner, right? Yep. And we all know, especially as we get older and we spend more time with doctors or our families do, you hear about the care they get. Yeah. And that's comprehensive. It's not just what they identified and are helping me with, but like how they made me feel. Are you going to survive this? Are you going to die? Like scary stuff as we get older. So we need people that are being trained on character and not just on tactics.
Right.
So.
And, you think of a student who wants to go into a helping profession, they're not going to be a VC or an investment banker, right? Like they recognize that they are going into a field that, is sort of a mid-level career from a financial gain standpoint. So if you really want to be a nurse or you really want to be a physical therapist, you're not driving a Lamborghini. So it is an interesting segment of the population who is very empathetic and they care about community health and public health and they want to give back. So many of them, I can't even tell you. When I was a faculty, I taught Exercise Science 101. intro. If you're interested in being a PT or a chiropractor or athletic medicine, or even the gym teachers would be in there, right? So I'm teaching freshman level exercise science. There's 180 students in the room. And the very first day you go, okay, who wants to go into healthcare? And 98% of them raise their hands. And then you start drilling down to why. And then you go, who was injured as an athlete in high school? 75% of the hands go up. And you're like, all right, so your lived experience of being cared for has gotten you interested in caring for others. And it really is this unique population of people who want to dedicate their lives to improving the movement health of others, unlocking people to be able to go back to the activities that allow them to engage with community, with their spouse, with their children, that do performance, do competition, the things that really drive us. And so it's a special population of students. I feel very, very honored to get to work with them.
Rad.
Yeah.
Well, it's super interesting because I think it was your experience too. You were injured and your recovery kind of helped direct your path.
For sure.
The only I had back surgery when I was 25. I really went through a lot. I had a lot of chiropractic support. The guys that worked on me have been in here as well. Dr. Tim Brown.
Awesome.
Incredible people that really helped me for years. I took a sabbatical early in my career to go look into going back to chiropractic school.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't, but it was the same thing. I was like, I spend so much time there. I know enough about it. I really like it. Should I make that my career? And I think that there's that common bond. And I think it's so important what you just said about the why. Helping people get back to what they love to do. Yep. And that brings us to the book. Yeah. Right? Like, if you can't do what you love to do, your quality of life goes down the tubes, right? So before we get to the book, because I think I have to ask this, with all the things that you do, and there's a lot, I think this is something that people would like to understand. Like, how do you balance it all? How do you, and I always say, like, I don't know if it's the word balance, you find harmony, whatever it is, but how do you accomplish all that you do and still have a marriage, a quality of life, all the things, like, how do you make that work, or how has that worked for you?
For me, it's all about discipline. And it's not a sexy answer, but I am somebody who has a Google Calendar, and the Google Calendar reflects the commitments I've made that day. And that might be a podcast, or it might be a meeting with my boss, or it might be the dog has to go get her haircut, right? The commitments, I'm unwavering to those commitments. And then when I get outside of those commitments, I am very good at protecting my free time. Because when you're writing a book for 2 years, you get up at 6 a.m. on Saturday and your husband is still sleeping and the dog is still sleeping and the house is completely quiet.
He's at the gym. He's not
No.
sleeping.
6 a.m. is not, that's not Paul's gym time. But the dog is sleeping, the husband's sleeping, and you go and you sit on the couch in front of your fireplace and you get out your laptop and you work until someone gets up. And that could be whatever time. And then you put the laptop away and you start your day with your family. And so for me, it's always been about discipline and then really being sensitive to, do I actually want to go spend my time doing this thing? And we have been so fortunate to live in a community for 25, 30 years where we've had a lot of businesses that are really integrated in the community. A lot of people know us. We get invited to a lot of things. We do have a wonderful, wide social circle. And saying no to things that I don't really think serve me has become a superpower. And so for me, it's discipline and prioritization. And then also, I really do think it's important, especially as a woman, to surround yourself with others who are walking some even partially similar path. So I've really assembled this group of gals who are, I have a friend who's the VP of sales for a massive dog toy company. And we don't work in the same industry, but she's got similar demands. She has a fabulous husband, a son who's a soccer athlete, pets, all these other commitments. And so having other gals sort of in that like tight circle who are going through the same experience is really awesome. My co-author in the book, her life is even busier than mine. And it's really good to have those other women supporting me, and I can support them as we're all sort of trying to like piece it together.
That was a great answer. Like, I would sprinkle that on people, because I think your answer on the discipline and the prioritization and maybe just the recognition of how and what is important to you and how you get there. Like, people always ask me how I get so much done. I'm like, I just don't sleep as much as I maybe should. And I also struggle with, I don't say no often enough.
Yeah.
And I've, so what you're saying really speaks to me. And I think everybody that's trying to accomplish a lot in life, you have to have systems intact and clarity of a path to say yes, yes, no. And this is, and I really like to say, like, you got to be willing to say, like, no, this isn't important to me anymore.
Yep.
I love that. That was a great answer. Thank you for that. I think that's super insightful. Okay, that brings us to the book. And you brought up Dr. Courtney Conley. So in researching you guys, I wasn't familiar with her. And man, she's prolific out there in the world. And she seems rad. Like, she seems super cool. Before we get into the book, how did you two get together, and where did the concept of this book come from?
For sure. So Dr. Courtney Conley is absolutely incredible. Her brand is called Gait Happens. So walking gait, Gait. She's a chiropractor based in Colorado. And the two of us are alumni of the brand Rock Tape. So the kinesiology tape brand.
Oh, I know it well.
Yes.
I think we all do. All athletes know it well.
Yes. So we both were clinical instructors for Rock Tape. And we met in 2015 because we were both teaching adult medical education for them. So most of those brand and product companies will have training for med pros to be like, oh, hey, you're a physical therapist. You want to know how to use Rock Tape and you know the science behind it and learn how to put it on people safely. And you can get your continuing education for your license. Great. We teach classes all over the world. And so she and I were both instructors for that brand is how we initially met.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then there was some catalyst, some spark that said, hey, we should write this book. What's the genesis of the book?
So Courtney's brand, Gait Happens, is a consumer education, medical professional education, and product company. So they sell things like toe spacers and education for people with bunions, and then they do training for medical pros. And a few years ago, she reached out and was like, hey, I'm wondering if you would do some consulting work for us. Because again, I have a background at Rock Tape. I've worked at Trigger Point. I've worked for lots of different health and fitness product brands. She was like, can you come in and help us? We're about to do some increases in our product business, and we really think your perspective coming from corporate might be helpful. So I took a consulting gig with those guys for a couple years on top of all the other stuff I was doing, and had been working for her, as a consultant in her business. And we were all at a friend's wedding in Mexico in 2024, and she comes waltzing up to me with a mimosa in her hand. She goes, hey, I got a project. And I was like, great. Because at the time I'm working for her. So it is not out of the ordinary for this woman to go, hey, I've got a project. I need your help. Let's go. She spins that fire as hot as I do. And I said, what do you need to do? Or what do you need me to do? And she goes, well, I want to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. And Courtney at the time has been posting every single day on Instagram for 10 years. She has 300,000 Instagram followers. That year, she had been on some massive podcasts, including Diary of the CEO. She is very well known in foot and gait. She flies to see professional athletes at NFL teams. She treats A-list celebrities. Like, she is a go-to practitioner. Foot, gait, foot pain, ankle, that is below the knee that is her wheelhouse. And I was like, okay. And as soon as she said she wanted to write a book, I was like, okay, what she needs from me is my business development commercialization experience, right? So I'm like, okay, great. That's what you need from me. I'm already sort of creating
You're
the
thinking
plan
over here. I think I know where this is.
Right.
Okay.
I'm thinking she needs me to help her sell the book. Great. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, what's it going to be about? And she goes, feet. And I said, oh, I think 10 people are probably going to read that. And she goes, no, everybody loves feet. We're going to talk about feet. I'm going to write a book about feet. And I said, all right, perhaps my first piece of advice on this project is let's write about something bigger than feet. You're so passionate about shoes and footwear and how that impacts foot health. You're so passionate about gait mechanics. You're so passionate about understanding how to keep your feet healthy and strong and mobile. And maybe we could talk about walking, and then feet could be a chapter or a section, because I think 11 people are going to read your book about feet, and they're all your other foot nerd experts who already know everything about feet. And so that was how the proposal came together. And very quickly, it was really synergistic or serendipitous. National Geographic had an article that came out right around that time that was talking about these really large-scale research studies that were saying, oh, the more you walk, the less you're going to die, was really the too long didn't read Cliff Note version. And it was this whole Nat Geo story about how there's been all these multi-year, big, multi-center, hundreds of thousands of people in these research studies. And what they're finding is if people walk certain thresholds, they have reduced mortality. Their risks of dying from 14 different kinds of dying go down. And I said, Court, there was just this big research study. Did you see it in Nat Geo? Oh, of course I saw it, because anything related to feet and walking, she's already read. Nothing is new to her. She beats me to the punch every time. So I said, have you read that Nat Geo article? And she finished my sentence, and she was like, oh yeah, the one with all blah, blah, blah data in it. And I said, maybe the conversation is about walking. And that's how it started. And that was January of 2024.
Okay. Got it. So, it's interesting when you talk about, and this is one of those things where we have such access to data and information and everybody's pushing it out there. So when you talk about this Nat Geo study of hundreds of thousands of people, and I always not giggle because I read it and then I have to step back and think about, if I walk the way it recommends I walk, and I sauna the way it's recommended I sauna, and ice bath, I'm never going to die.
No, you're going to live to be 400.
Right? I mean, and that's a part of the story for later, because I think like everyone, it's analysis paralysis.
Yep.
It is too much information coming in that's hard to discern what's real and what's material to me. But we're all getting all of these things thrown at us, and I want to try that, and I want to try that, and this supplement, and that modality. And that's when I'm like, and some people these days, unfortunately, don't look at experts, as I said earlier. I'm like, I want someone to tell me.
Yep.
I want someone like you or Dr. Connolly to go, Mark, this is what we need to do based on your specific thing. This is what we're going to do. I'm like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And I think most people, if they get in front of really good practitioners or good educated professionals that have done all the footwork, like nobody can have as many certifications and professional accolades and things that you do and not be considered light years ahead of somebody else over here on Instagram. Even if they have 1 million followers and they're claiming they know about the foot or walking or whatever, like, I'm coming to you. So you guys decide to put this book together. Why? So I know what she wanted to talk about feet, and you helped come to this conclusion. Let's talk about walking and the benefits of it. Did she have an end goal? Did you guys come up with an end goal? Like, who are you trying to serve? What's this book out there to provide?
Right. So the great part of walking is 98% of the individuals on the planet have that capacity, right? And so as practitioners, as I said, she's a chiro, I'm a physical therapist, we recognize there are people who are unable to walk. They use a wheelchair, they've had, reasons that capacity isn't available for them. And so the book is really targeted at anyone who has the capacity to walk, which is very inclusive. It's a very inclusive conversation. And as we started diving deeper into what the end goal is, the end goal and the refrain is help more people have a big impact. Because she still has an active clinical practice. I've transitioned just to a virtual practice. And so the amount of volume of patients that 2 people can see per year is not very big. It's mice nuts. To bring that back, it's mice nuts. Itty bitty little mice nuts. And so having a platform like this, getting on podcasts, being interviewed, allows us to share accurate information and actionable information with the average person. And foot pain is the second biggest musculoskeletal diagnosis globally, second only to back pain. So if you're in a room with 100 people, the data suggests that 60% or more will have an episode of back pain in their life. 1 in 3 adults over 45 has had an episode or is still managing an episode of foot pain. These are significant problems. And if you've ever had foot pain, it affects absolutely every moment of your life. You get out of bed in the morning, you want to go use the washroom, and you have to walk there, right? And it's like, if you have heel pain or foot pain or neuroma or a bunion that's painful or numbness and tingling, that is a barrier. The first thing you do when you get out of bed is go, oh God, I got to load this thing. Right? You can get out of bed with a sore shoulder. You can get out of bed with a sore neck. I mean, no offense on the elbow, but nobody's bearing that much weight on the elbow. And so when we think about the life impact of having foot pain, it's substantial. And so a reason that the book became this additive activity for us over the last couple of years was because we really wanted to get the message out so people can use the information on a larger scale.
Got it. The statistics are gnarly. What you just said,
yeah,
And there's more that we'll talk about, like when we start talking about shoes and like just the data. Well, let me stop there. There's so many things on this we can talk about with regard to the power of walking, but let's talk about that. What is what's the talk about walking.
Okay.
The recommendations, what are we maybe doing wrong?
Yes.
What are the misconceptions? Let's talk about walking.
Well, the first misconception is that you need to walk 10,000 steps.
Oh my gosh,
I was going
to go there because it seems like since the advent of like Apple Watches and Garmin watches,
roll it back even further. Keep going.
Oh, really?
Keep going.
It seems like we're always monitoring, always how many did I get and it's a misconception.
Misconception.
Okay, fill us in.
The pedometer was invented in the 1960s, and it was the size of an AirPod case, and it clipped on your belt, and it was manual. The clicker only went up to 10,000. It was developed in Japan following the Tokyo Olympics because there was sort of like a big health push going on. And the Japanese term for it was 10,000 step meter. It's called the Monkope. And so there were two reasons that that's what it was called when it started, was this 10,000 step meter was the pedometer. So that's been hanging around for 65 years. And the great news for anyone who feels like 10,000 steps is a really high benchmark, hard to achieve, feels like too much for them. They don't have enough time. They've got other reasons, they're spending their time elsewhere, whatever. You can be unlocked. 10,000 steps is not a science-backed benchmark. And as we were doing promotion for the book, when it released in the beginning of May, we were on CBS Good Morning, we were on Fox and Friends, Time Magazine profiled us that week, we were on the today.com website, and the trolls came out. I have trolls now. Courtney's had trolls for years, but I personally have trolls now. And the trolls were like, you just want everyone to be lazy and fat. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. I'm a physical therapist. Like, my goal is to promote healthy human movement and more of it. And man, did that rile people up. People were like, 10,000 is the correct benchmark. You guys don't know what you're talking about. It was shocking.
All those web-based experts.
All the web-based experts.
That are probably not your optimal physique or capacity.
No idea. They could be shredded and fit, but man, were they hot. And so
interesting.
So 10,000 steps is just kind of an urban legend. And it is something that I think when you really reflect on step counts that have science backing, 10,000 is not in the conversation. And so I like to think of step counts as a menu at a restaurant, right? So you and I go out to breakfast and we have all these things to pick from. And that's true with step counts too, because there are step counts that correlate to different types of health benefits, all the way from 3,500 to the 9,000s. And depending on maybe what your predispositions are or what you're worried about or what you want to work on, you can select a step count that is absolutely proven by science to help achieve a specific goal. And 10,000 is not in that conversation. There's also what's called a rate of diminishing returns, which means more is not better. And that tops out in the 9,000s. And so again, if you're someone who's like, I always walk 12,000 steps a day, 15,000 steps, don't you tell me to back it off. What I would counter that statement with is, if you're walking that much, that's a lot of time. If you're walking 12,000, 15,000, we're talking 2+ hours, no matter how fast of a walker you are. You're not running, you're walking, right? So if you're gonna go walk 12K, 13, 14K, that's a big time commitment. And if you pare that back, you could take that time and repurpose it. Strength train, sauna, meditation, walk your dog, whatever it may be. And so that's a hot topic.
How does somebody find out what is optimal for them?
So unless you want to go snooping around in Google Scholar and PubMed and read all the research articles, by the way, there are 300 research articles in this book, and the science is very strong. You can think about what benefits you're looking for. So one of my favorite examples is individuals who struggle with depression. And so if you have depression in your family, or you have worry, or you have had previous bouts of it, great research tells us walking 5,500 reduces depression symptom. Walking 7,500 reduces risk in your lifetime of developing it. And so that's pretty middle, right? Most individuals walk at about 100 steps per minute. So if you're thinking about 5,500, that's under an hour. Another misconception about walking steps is you have to do it all at once in these big bites. And that's actually another misconception. You need to walk for at least 5 minutes to start getting into some steady state. And there are other research studies that say if you walk for at least 12 to 15 minutes, you're getting more cardiovascular benefit. And so you can take little walking snacks throughout the day and it all accumulates over the course of the day.
So that was a walking snack. That's funny. One of the things that, again, I was hit with a couple paradigm shifting concepts when I was researching this. And one was that, and it might have been Dr. Conley that said it, but like, if you go for a run in the morning, that doesn't count necessarily towards your steps. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I'm the guy that I worked out in the morning, I got my workout done. The rest of the day is the rest of the day. And what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it doesn't really, you kind of need both.
It's an and conversation. And somebody interviewed me about this earlier this week. It was a running podcast. And they were like, well, our audience is runners. So are you going to tell them to walk on top of running? Absolutely. Because if it was a cycling podcast, we can easily differentiate that riding a bike and walking are completely different mediums. But we all sort of have in our head that running and walking are the same, and they're not. And so it's an and conversation. So yes, if you go for a run in the morning, I'd love for you to still go for a walk later in the day. Could you go for a mid-afternoon walk to work on cognitive clarity, boosting cerebral blood flow, activating neurologic growth factor in your brain? Yeah, that'd be good for you, right? Could you go for a walk after dinner, which helps to support your pancreas, helps to remove glucose from your system, helps digestion? That'd be great for you too. Taking a walk before bed, what's that going to do? It's also going to help to boost your sleep, reduce your cortisol level, drop your body temp. And so there's some really strong evidence that even if you're getting up in the morning and you're surfing or you're pickleballing or you're trail running or whatever, sprinkling those walks in still really matters.
Thank you. And it's so interesting because what I think that means is that where I think many of us think of getting out and exercising throughout the day as a general term. If I got my paddle in or my pickleball or my walk, it's all the same bucket. And what you're saying is it's a freestanding entity.
Yes.
Exercise is exercise. Walking is walking. Yeah. I think that kind of goes back to one of the concepts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of put walking right up there with breathing and sleeping.
Correct. It's a trilogy. There are 3 pillars to health. Now, and all the lifeguards and paramedics and medical people know that if you're not breathing, it's the biggest problem, right? You know, who's the person you address first at an emergency scene? It's not the person screaming bloody murder, right? As we all know. And so breathing obviously is paramount, but next comes sleeping and walking. And the 3 should be treated as physiological requirements to be well. And when you start falling away from walking, so walking is at an all-time low since the pandemic. Humans evolved to walk super long distances, right? So our ancestors walked 12, 15, 16,000 steps a day, not on concrete man-made surfaces, right? On soft surfaces, wearing shoes that were just designed for protection. And what's happened with industrial revolution and concrete and living in cities and all those sorts of things is shoes have become not only protection, they become a status symbol and everything else, right? But since the pandemic, humans are walking the least we've been walking in our sort of modern history. The statistics kind of like 2022, 2023 were saying that most individuals had dropped below 5,000 globally for the first time since they started keeping track of that. And so the and conversation is where it's at, because walking feeds your body a different input than everything else.
That might be the biggest distinction, I think, for most people. Because I think, like I said before, I think I've always thought of walking, or in a day, I've got these things I'm going to do. Exercise is part of it. But I would think of walking as part of that. If I didn't get to the gym today, at least I got a walk in.
Yep.
But if I got to the gym, I might not think it's important to go walk. And you're saying, nope, it's and, not or.
It is. And we have a chapter in the book that's all about time management. And it's the exact conversation where you ask me sort of like, how do you get all this done? How does Courtney get everything done? We both run practices. We have partners. We have kids. Her daughter's still in high school, so she's got a kid. She's actually driving around. Our kids are out, so we are no longer picking people up at dance practice. And so the time management aspect of that is a really big part of this conversation. And so one of the things that we workshopped in this project is how do you carve out the time? And especially because when we reframe walking, that it doesn't have to be 10,000. It doesn't have to be all in one chunk. It can be these little snacks throughout the day. They're all accumulative. That part gets really fun because we came up with this framework of, can you stack a walk on top of something else you're doing? Can you swap a walk for an activity that doesn't serve you? Can you squeeze a walk in between other things? And I think for the individuals who are business leaders who are listening to this, and if you work in an environment where you manage people or you are in a decision-making role, I work in a big corporate office in Houston, Texas, right? Like I go to a big silver building and it looks like the Office theme song should be playing in the background. And I go into a place that's full of cubicles and people and floors that are just stacked upon each other. And I recently gave a presentation in Texas about walk and talk meetings and being able to give individuals permission to say, hey, Mark, you and I need to have a meeting about X topic today. And it's not confidential. And it's something that we could use movement to boost our creativity, boost our communication, boost our connection. So let's go for a walk and hash out that topic. And that's starting to gain some steam. And so giving people permission to walk with a colleague, walk with a coworker, if you're in leadership, modeling that, saying, hey, I know we need to connect later today about those 4 internship candidates. Let's go take a walk and we'll knock through it. Man, that can really be powerful for a public health perspective, reducing burnout, improving creativity, and essentially like boosting business productivity. And so I think that there's really a story and a message there that I hope people start to hear more often.
You know, it's interesting. I believe that 1,000,000%. A lot of people in my office, without my push or pull, they've just been doing that.
Yeah.
It's just good, you know, and when you're in a windowless box or a silver box, like you said, like it's good to get out and mix it up. And we know production happens when it's collaborative.
Right.
That's why remote work is a challenging one.
Yep.
So if you're in, yes, for all those reasons, I think that's a brilliant recommendation to keep pushing leaders to not to support, but to model.
Yep.
Super, super smart.
We actually wrote quite a bit of the book while walking, which is really funny. We both have dogs, and so obviously dog walking is a big part of our life. And we would schedule these calls, right? We'd get stuck in a chapter. One of the chapters that about I don't even know, took us down was the shoes chapter, because shoes is...
Well, we're going to get there in just a minute, because I think this book has probably 2 elements: the power of walking and the importance of talking about our feet.
Yeah, for
right?
sure,
And shoes and the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, one of the quotes that I got that I just, again, it keeps supporting this, because I think this is paradigm shifting stuff. You've spent all this time working on talking about it, but for those of us out here that are just starting to get it, like for me, thinking of walking as important as breathing or sleeping, thinking of walking as separate from exercise.
Yep.
And it's a mental health thing. It has all these benefits that are clearly identified through all the modeling and all the studies, but that it's different. I think that's where people are probably going, okay, that's a new concept for me to think of. I like the snacks throughout the day. Just get the steps. Don't worry about how many. Like, there's a lot of things here. Like, again, I think that me, like so many other, that 10,000 is the number that has been, like burned into my brain, that's where I should be at least getting close to. Right. Maybe I'm not trying to get it every single day, but it's a good goal. And you're saying, it's not a good goal. Yeah. Don't start there, start somewhere else.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
The basement is 3,500. So there's really powerful, very large scale studies with hundreds of thousands of subjects in them that takes 2,500 as utter basement. And so in our book, we have 3 programs. So if you're someone who wants to start a walking program, the tools are in there. And the basement is 2,500, and we call that the base program. So if you're below 2,500 a day, that has to be the goal, because the death risks and disease risks below 2,500 are exponential. Heart attack, stroke, cancer, anxiety, depression, all the suicidality. Like, there is some under 2,500, you are at high risk. I can't emphasize that enough. But there's so much hope when you really look at, okay, well, how much do I actually have to do? Like, if I'm someone who's walking less than 2,500 a day, you're homebound, you're recovering from major injury or surgery, perhaps you're crazy depressed. Like, there's all sorts of reasons that someone would be that low, right? But if you can take someone who's at 2,500 and add 500 steps a day, that could be mailbox back. That could be in the home. Like, we could walk 500 steps in the studio very quickly. If you go from 2,500 to 3,000, it reduces risk of dying by 14 types of death by 7%. And if you take that person at 2,500 and bring them up to 3,500, it reduces mortality and death risk by 15%. And so that jump is significant, right? When we think about humans living to their mid-70s, we add 15% to your lifespan. We're talking 3 or 4 years. And those are years of living well. And I think that when we have individuals who are kind of in that lower echelon for whatever reason. I mean, maybe you're 90 years old and have 3 hip replacements and you're just, like using a walker and all these things. Those people can still get above 2,500. And so I think that those are some really important public health numbers, and that's the basement. And so if anybody has a goal number in mind, it's got to be above that.
Got it.
Yeah.
And without nerding out and going super deep, what are the physiological impacts of getting one, like what's the difference between somebody getting 2,500 steps and 5,000 steps? Like what's going on in the body that's so different that it's that material to go and pursue this?
Yeah, for sure. So let's start at the top. So when you think about the effects on your mental health, mood and creativity are affected. And when you get into those higher step counts, you're spending more time in a positive, more clear mental state than you're not. We also know that cerebral blood flow increases. The more blood flow to your brain, more oxygen, more nutrients, more neurologic growth. So we're essentially watering the garden of the brain while we're walking. As we come down, you start looking at cardiovascular fitness and pulmonary health. And so if you walk, most people walk at about 100 steps per minute. If you walk at a more brisk pace, which is 120 to 130, you can start getting into zone 2 exercise. Zone 2 exercise is going to give you some body comp changes. If you start pushing harder than that, let's say you're walking at 120 to 130, maybe on an incline, maybe with a weighted vest, maybe with a weighted belt, then you can start looking at zone 3, which is going to be cardio protection. As we keep coming down the chain, you start getting into the gut, and we know there's an axis between the brain and the gut. So the healthier your gut, the healthier your brain, vice versa. You walk after a meal, it helps to support the actions of your pancreas. Exercise is very similar to insulin, and that it pulls sugar out of the bloodstream and it stores it in your muscles. So we're taking pressure off the pancreas when we walk after meals. Walking after meals also raises your body temp, and then once you cool down, drops your body temp, which can help work on your cortisol levels. And we know that cortisol is a stress level, or stress hormone, excuse me. And then finally, when we think about body coordination, balance, fall risk, because walking is a total body activity that requires coordination of upper extremity and your lower extremity, your right side of your body and your left side of your body, all of that patterning helps us with balance, reaction time, and fall prevention. Finally, you've got the musculoskeletal load, right? Dr. Vonda White is someone I really look up to. She's an orthopedic surgeon in Pittsburgh who her position is all about like women loading their bones so they don't end up with hip fractures and die in her office. And she's an amazing contributor to that conversation. And so if you're loading your bones, right, you're walking, you're upright, you're having all those musculoskeletal demands, we're actually boosting not only your muscle tone, but your skeletal health. And so it's kind of funny because it feels like you could position walking and be like, oh, it's this panacea. If you just do it, you'll be healthier. That's the sound bite. Walk more, die less. Walk more, feel more healthy. And I think that is really where people, if they can sort of like think about it from the perspective you were just mentioning it doesn't go in the exercise bucket. It's not an or conversation, it's an and conversation. It goes over here in this bucket where we're feeding our body something it wants and needs, like breathing, like sleeping, those physiological inputs. That's where the magic happens.
It's so amazing because the way you speak about walking, I think of walking like as a hack, long time endurance athlete, paddling, running, cycling. I think of more is more.
Yeah.
And kind of what you're saying is not that you're saying less is more, but the load, you're not talking about load. You're getting all this benefit from the simple act of walking. And I'm sure there's some aspect of it. He's got to walk well or walk right, whatever that is. But you're saying just walk, and we'll get to that in a minute. But like walking has all of the, I think many of us would think of walk as a simple thing, but what you just broke down of all of these benefits that we get from this simple act of walking. If we go back millions of years, it's all they were doing. Walking, maybe some running, trying to survive, but it wasn't, they weren't at the gym and they weren't riding bikes and they weren't paddling channels and yet they were probably very fit and not overweight, and diet was different as well. But it's really, again, another paradigm shift. Like I do so much load and this is like, now just fucking walk. Like
it's like anti-load almost.
It's anti-load.
Yeah.
It's
really not more. More is not the conversation here. And it's, walking is characterized by some as sort of this like conversational return to like slower fitness, right? And we owned a CrossFit. I love throwing down. I love jumping on boxes and slamming a medicine ball and, being on the level of like, do I need a trash can? This could go south really quickly. I love being in zone 4. And I also like having a conversational walk with my husband on, after dinner down Corona del Mar, working our way down to the beach. Like that's wonderful, building time with my partner, but it's also really good for us from a health perspective. And so I love that you characterize that shift that way. Like it doesn't have to be bigger, faster, stronger, harder all the time. There's a time and a place for that. And that gives you a different type of input. And I just love that this conversation, the whole point of us doing this project is that we want this information to reach more people and then for everyone to become an ambassador in our little bitty walking army and share this information with somebody else, right? Inspire someone else to come with you. Ask a friend, ask a neighbor, walk the dog that's at the shelter, and bring the coworkers. It doesn't take much for this to tip over into something everybody's doing. And I think that we're just on the cusp of that right now, which is really exciting.
Well, I commend you guys for helping us. Again, I'd like to think of myself as being pretty fit, pretty athletic, and fairly educated about this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm learning a ton just by this, again, paradigm shifting concepts of what it is versus what it isn't, and how it fits into my life as a human, but also as an athlete trying to get better. But as I age, I'm running into more and more issues. But walking it's really interesting, and I really appreciate it. But so we can talk all about walking, but then we get to the feet, which I know is Dr. Conley's specialty, but
obsession.
Let's
you're
call
deep
it an
in
obsession.
that.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's what you want when you have a co-author writing about it. So let's talk about feet and shoes and issues. One of the things when I was researching, what I was dumbfounded by, it said 1 in 3 people, you said this, 1 in 3 people have foot pain. 60% of adults are wearing the wrong size shoe.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, like, you mentioned I have my Vibram, whatever these are called.
Viva Barefoot.
My barefoot shoe on that I love. But when I was running my marathons and everything, I was wearing Hokas. So I've gone from ultra padded to and everything. And I think I know what is right for me, but I don't know. Like I'm self-prescribing, and I think most people are self-prescribing for the most part. So let's talk about feet and let's get into shoes.
Okay. Your feet are one of the hardest working parts of your body. And yes, that research article is about 60% of adults are wearing the wrong size of shoe, meaning the wrong length. If you've been a size 10 since college, I hate to break it to you, you probably are no longer a size 10. Feet get longer and shorter throughout our lifespan for lots of different reasons. Increased muscle tone, decreased muscle tone, increased fluid volume, decreased fluid volume, increased body load if you're pregnant, if you've had a significant weight gain or loss, hormones, chemicals, pharmaceuticals. There are so many reasons that our adult feet change size. Additionally, another misconception, not as hot as the 10,000 steps, because that brings out the trolls. The shoe size conversation doesn't really for some reason. Most individuals think if they're a 10, well, I'm a 10 in Nike, I'm a 10 in Hoka, I'm a 10 in Vans, I'm a 10 in Vivo, I'm a 10 in Birkenstock, whatever, 10, 10, 10. Again, not true, because all of those shoes are made on different molds. And so a 10 in Nike versus a 10 in Hoka is not always the same length. So I challenge everyone who's listening to this conversation today, please measure your foot either by printing a PDF off the web or going to a shoe store and actually get an accurate measurement. Most of our feet are not symmetrical right to left. Just like your face isn't symmetrical, most of our arms are different lengths, what have you. And so this is something that can help you avoid some of the common problems that we see in the clinic, is to go get your foot measured. And actually, I would challenge everyone to do it once a year. Do it on your birthday. That's a great time to be like, hey, it's my birthday. Maybe I'll buy a new pair of shoes. Hey, Paul, I need a new pair of shoes. Go get your foot measured on your birthday every year and just keep track, because you are going to see fluctuation. That is a reality of being an adult human. And it's something most of us miss. And so having ill-fitting footwear can cause a host of problems. There's all sorts of things that come out of that.
So interesting. You know, my experience, I think about clothes. Like you can get, as a guy, like a pair of surf trunks that are size 32 in one brand and they're not the same in 32 from another.
Yep.
But even Hoka, year to year, when I was always in the Cliftons.
Yep.
Every year, those shoes were different and they wouldn't fit the same way. And I ended up wearing, I have normal size feet, but I would wear their wides. I had to wear their wides in Hoka's for whatever reason. So that makes sense to me. You mentioned something about being like the most common, like what are the most common things that Dr. Conley would see on feet? Like feet issues. You said there's a common host.
How much time do we have? So the problems we typically see from ill-fitting footwear, and don't get me started on high heels. We can talk about that in a second, but this is just like length, right? So I assume I'm a 10, but actually I'm a 10 and a half. So I'm wearing something that's a little too short. What kind of problems do you get? Bunions, hammer toes, neuroma, nerve pain, heel pain, plantar fasciopathies, Achilles issues.
Okay.
But wait, there's more. It can come up the biomechanical chain. So you could be like, I have this nagging knee thing. I have this nagging IT band. My hip hurts. If you have a good medical practitioner taking care of you and you come in with a foot problem, I'm looking all the way up to your belly button, if not higher, because it's also interconnected. And so it's low hanging fruit to get this right. And sizing is the first place to start.
How do people get it right? Because if you go to a shoe store, I don't know how trained they are. The equipment they use, I don't know. There was something that I think that you guys have in there, which is it, or maybe in something I listened from one of you too, where if you just take the insert out of your shoe and step on it.
Yeah. So does anybody have shoes on like that around here? Nobody does. So a typical running shoe is going to have that factory insert. And if you pull out the factory insert, set it on the floor and stand on it, if your toes are hanging over the edge, it's the wrong size. And if you have a pair that are old and stinky and dirty and rotten and you take out that insole, it's going to show you if those toes are hanging over the edge because you don't see the little border, right? So like if these are my toes and I don't see space on that nasty, dirty footprint in my shoe, that means it's too short. So there's a lot of ways to assess this. What's funny is the measuring device that you will find in every shoe store from a Nordstrom to a Fleet Feet is called a Brannock device, and it's that black and silver, super ugly thing.
Been around forever.
It is 100 years old this year. They're made in New York. They have never basically changed the style of the machine. And that is considered one of the gold standards. And so it doesn't matter if the person at the shoe store is highly trained because you want to stand while you're measuring, but just have whoever, bring somebody with you and have them slide that thing up and you can get an accurate measurement.
Got it.
It's critically important.
Gotcha. And then, so let's go down, let's keep talking shoes. The wrong shoe, what kind of impact can it have? Even the right size?
Yeah.
Like
right size, wrong shoe.
Right size, wrong shoe. You could say the same thing about surfboards or bikes or anything.
Sure.
But if I go in and I get the right size shoe, I've got that confirmed. But like I even think of just talk Hoka's because they've got the stable and like there's all these elements. Like how do I know as a consumer what shoe to wear?
We're going to bring out the trolls.
Bring it.
Those shoes are hyper engineered and most of our feet do not need all that help. We don't need all the cushion. We don't need the high stack height. 99% of people do not need a pronation control shoe. 99% of people do not need a stability shoe. And that is a very unpopular opinion, but it's true. I was in London recently because our book is also getting released in the UK. And I was walking in a pretty affluent part of London and there was a Tag Heuer store and an Omega store. And right next to it was Brooks and right next to it was Hoka. And so I'm looking at these stores going, all right, you're selling a $20,000 watch here and a $200 pair of running shoes here. And I assume your rent is pretty parallel. Like what's happening here? So those mega shoe companies are marketing features that we don't need. Most of us do not need. And it's this big misconception that, well, I have hip pain, I have knee pain, I'm a little bit overweight, I need a cushioned shoe to absorb all that weight. Well, guess what? The more cushion in the shoe, the harder your body strikes the ground because you can't feel the ground. You have hundreds of thousands of receptors in the bottom of your feet. And if you're standing on this much cushion, you're that far away from feeling what you're actually standing on. And so the cushioned shoes are a significant issue. There's a really, really smart female researcher named Dr. Sarah Ridge, and she researches cross-sectional area of all the little bitty muscles inside your feet. And individuals who wore minimal shoes, so not a hyper cushioned shoe, not a shoe with a really stacked up heel, grew the muscle size in their feet. And we all know that the bigger the muscle looks, the stronger the muscle is, right? They had bigger muscles in their feet from wearing minimal shoes, kind of like what you have on a Vivo, that type of brand, for 6 weeks. So in 6 weeks of simply walking In a shoe that respects the anatomy of the foot and is not over-engineered, the feet got stronger. And in most cases, people who have foot pain for 2 reasons. 1, lack of mobility. 2, their feet are weak. And that is the people with Achilles issues, plantar fasciopathy, heel pain, ball of the foot pain. Bunions and hammer toes are typically deformities that are caused by ill-fitting footwear. But all of the itis, all of the inflammatory crap that wakes you up in the morning and you're like, oh God, I got to put my feet on the floor. Most of the time that's coming from weakness and lack of mobility, and shoes are a part of the problem.
Yeah. What's really amazing, what's funny, because as I mentioned earlier, I wore Hoka's when I was doing all my long running.
Yeah.
But day to day, I like to wear minimalist shoes.
Yeah.
I like to feel, and I've read enough to kind of understand.
Yeah.
I think it's better, and I believe that.
Yeah.
But if I put a pair of, call it high stack shoes here, flip flops,
Yep.
Birkenstocks,
Yep.
A minimalist shoe, high heels, and regular, call it like Adidas, like lifestyle shoes that you see, like, how does someone go through, like, are they okay to wear all of them sometimes? Are there some you say never ever wear those again? Like, how do you recommend people pick out their shoes for their daily life?
So in the book, we have something we call the 24-hour shoe clock. And so if your day is 24 hours and you're going to be sleeping for a third of it, and you're going to be home for a chunk of it, and then you're out in the world for a chunk of that pie, think of it like a pie chart, right? So let's say you have about half of that day, or 2/3 of that day that is accommodated for. And then you get to think about in that pie chart, well, I'm going to a cocktail party tonight. Am I going to wear Hoka's? Probably not. Am I going to wear a stiletto, pointy, sexy dress shoe? Maybe. But am I going to walk 4 miles in it? No. And am I going to maybe do a little bit of high heel rehab when I get home because I wasn't nice to my feet when I was wearing some sexy Jimmy Choo? Maybe, right? So the education around footwear is an and conversation as well. When you are knowing that you're going to go on a long walk, you're traveling, you're going to be going through airports, you're going to New York City, you're going to be clomping around everywhere, you want to make sure you are wearing a shoe that respects your foot's anatomy and doesn't have all those excessive features. Now, you can't go cold turkey. Those cold turkey people end up in our offices too, right? So if you're somebody who's spent a lot of time in a Hoka or all these over-engineered shoes, and you're like, okay, well, I want to end up in maybe a Vivo Barefoot, that takes time and it takes transition. And so the typical shoe we'll call a traditional shoe. So that could be Hoka, Brooks, Nike, Vans, like any shoe that doesn't have what we would say healthy and functional features. When we get into the middle category of shoes, we call those functional shoes. A functional shoe has a wide toe box. It is shaped like a foot. It respects the foot's anatomy. It's going to have less cushion, and it's going to have a low heel to toe drop. So that would be a shoe like Ultra Running makes a lot of shoes like that are really well done. Topo Athletic does a great job. Witten is a brand on Amazon that is super affordable where you can try a shoe that has those features for very low cost, like under $50. And the idea is that shoe has a wide toe box and is shaped like your foot. And then the final category is minimal shoes, like what you're wearing. So a minimal shoe would be Vivo Barefoot, Zero, Wildlings is a great brand in there. Witten also has some shoes that are minimal, and that's a shoe that's shaped like a foot, respects the anatomy, wide toe box, no cushion, and zero heel to toe drop. So your heel and your toe are on the same plane. And a big part of answering your question of like, well, what should I do with these Adidas Gazelles, and can I wear a Hoka? What do I do with my stilettos? It's all time and place, right? And so if you really want to wear a fancy shoe for a short period of time, so be it, but know that there's a price to pay. There's no free lunch. Just like if you are an adult who chooses not to wear a helmet on your bike, like you're putting yourself at risk. And we can think about unhealthy shoe choices are putting you at risk for certain things. It depends on time under tension. If you are somebody who is, a professional and female, and you're in a corporate environment where fancy shoes are expected as part of your work uniform, that's challenging because there aren't a lot of shoes that really respect foot anatomy that are fancy. Right? And the same is true for men. Like I go to New York City a lot for work, and you see these guys in these like super narrow toe boxes. They're in a shoe that's not flexible, like a hard, sole, like those loafer things that all the guys wear with their puffy vests. I don't understand the East Coast attire, honestly, being a transplanted California gal married to a Californian.
Hey, the outside's
I
different.
digress.
The outside is a different place.
Yes, outside is a different place. But shoes, you want to have, if you have the means, you want to have different shoes for different jobs. And if you are somebody who's on a budget and you're like, I can't have 17 different pairs of shoes, the next pair of shoes you buy, please make sure they're shaped like a foot.
Got it.
Yeah.
They're really good. Let me ask you this. So we've talked about you and your history. We've talked about the book and walking, and now we talked about shoes, and there's way more we could go down, all kinds of rabbit holes, which would be super fun. But if somebody's listened to you and they're inspired and they grab your book and they read it, like, if somebody goes, I want to improve my overall global health, starting with my feet, like, what do you recommend?
So foot health starts with mobility, neurologic awareness, and strength. So there are 3 categories really to having a healthy foot. And because your feet impact your posture up the chain, right? They impact how your knee functions, your ankle, your hip, your back, everything else. It's really important that we have adequate mobility. And foot mobility comes in sort of like 3 arenas. How flexible is your ankle? How flexible is your great toe? And how much does the middle of your foot roll? And pronation is a term that most of us have heard, and most of us have heard, oh, pronation's bad. I need a shoe that stops me from pronating. Or someone said I'm an over-pronator. I wear this orthotic because of pronation. Pronation is a normal part of mechanics, and it helps us get our big toe down. So pronation is part of the middle of our foot rolling to get the big toe down so we can push off and propulse forward. And so when our first thing to think about with foot health is how's your mobility? And so one of the fun chapters we have in here, we basically have like a self-assessment you can do without a PT or a chiro. You can do it yourself at home. And it looks at ankle mobility, great toe mobility, and middle of the foot mobility. And that's a good foundational place to start. The next element is your neurologic awareness. And so the more cushioned your daily driver, your daily footwear is, the less neurologic input you're getting from the ground to your brain. That can impact balance and fall risk. And so I mentioned my mom earlier, who's fantastically healthy. She is so strong. Like, that woman has muscle everywhere. I swear her bones are made out of bricks. She had a fall a couple years ago. They live in Maui half the time, and she had a fall in Maui. She was wearing a Hoka Clifton, big old fluffy, cushiony shoe. And she's got good balance and good reaction time and everything else. And she basically tripped over the footwear. And one of the challenges, as we normally age, male or female, we start to lose muscle tone, we start to lose some of our balance, we start to lose some of our reaction time. As you're aging, you're compounding the risks of falling if you're on a super cushioned shoe. And it's really tough for me in airports when I see older adults wearing really cushioned shoes, because I know that can impact their fall risk. And that is something that those of you who have aging parents, the next time they buy a new shoe, try to get them into something with less cushion. That's really critical for balance and fall health. And so the second factor in foot health is your neurologic awareness. Can you feel the surface you're standing on? Does your shoe allow you to splay your toes and get daylight between those little toes so you can get the muscles working? Does that allow you to feel the floor? Think like a gecko, right? They've got like their little toes all spread out everywhere and they can climb up a wall. If that gecko's little toes were tight together like this, right? They don't have as good of spread and splay, and they wouldn't be able to be quite as, adept at doing that. And
Well,
so
also, sorry to interrupt, but I think of like babies.
Yeah,
their toes
for
are all
sure.
splayed.
They're everywhere.
My toes don't look like that anymore.
No, they don't.
Right?
No, your baby toes did.
They did.
Yeah.
I wish I had a gecko toes.
Well,
it would be awesome for surfing, and it would be good for my whole health.
Right.
Right?
Well, stop wearing the high heels on the weekends. And then
How did you know?
The third one is strength. And strength can't be prioritized enough, because your foot is your gas pedal. Your big toe is your gas pedal, and it propulses you forward. And you have to have adequate strength in your calf and in your foot to push forward. Walking is, a forward progression. And so there's some really fun research that looks at single leg calf raise based on your age and how many you can do without cheating. And it's age matched in different age groups, and it's gender matched, right? So guys and gals are supposed to be able to do different amounts of single leg calf raise. That's a really good self-test at home to see how much sort of propulsion endurance you have. And then the next one is the health and strength of your big toe flexor. Most falls occur at the initiation of gait. And so if you can't stop your momentum forward, that's when you fall. And so the muscle that keeps you from doing that is your big toe flexor. And so we typically will have individuals stand vertically, and then they lean forward, and we see how far we can get them to lean. Their little big toes are pushing into the floor with those flexors. And that toe flexor is very predictive of your ability to stop yourself and decelerate.
Got it.
And there's been some really fantastic research studies that test big toe flexor strength. If your big toe flexor can't do 10% of your body weight, you're at higher fall risk.
So interesting. So if somebody wants to go down the road, let's say somebody has foot pain of some sort, or some a bunion or a hammer toe or whatever it may be, any of the things that we've caused ourselves over time.
Yes.
And they want to unravel that. Can they learn about it in the book? Do they come find you or Dr. Connolly? Do we go to a podiatrist wherever you live? Like, what's the path in a nutshell? What would you recommend?
Yep. So babies aren't born with bunions. So you're right. We cause them because of ill-fitting footwear. And there are lots of ways to get help, right? So Courtney and I both see virtual patients. And there is a lot of information sort of like self-service in the book, right? So our intent with the book is it to function like a cookbook where you can pick it up and you don't need me standing right next to you, and you can go through it and learn some things. And then there's all sorts of drills, there's movement snacks, there's homework, there's programs. And so it is really designed to allow you to start problem solving yourself. But we do recognize that there are a lot of people who are like, I've been to 4 or 5 people, I can't decide what shoes to wear, this problem's been bothering me for years. And so we do both see, she sees patients in person in Colorado and virtual, and then I see virtual. And then she has a team of virtual practitioners on the Gait Happens side who are virtual practitioners who do telemedicine visits or teleconsult visits, I suppose. And then they have trained practitioners all over the country in their training courses. And so if you go to their website, there's a lot of really great resources. They have a really strong YouTube and Instagram presence. And so they're giving free information out to the community always about how to keep your feet healthy. And it's a combination of mobility, neuro, and strength.
Rad. So there's hope. If somebody has these problems, it's not too late to start to win back gains and improvements in our foot health and everything that comes from it.
Yeah, I would say the biggest secret for anyone with a bunion is use of toe spacers and looking for wider toe box shoes. That's a very common condition. We tend to see it in people who have had to either wear specific types of uniform footwear or have chosen to wear fancy footwear over the course of their lives or careers. And bunions can be a big problem. And so a toe spacer, which is, like a $20 piece of plastic, fit to your specific shoe size, can make a world of difference. So, yeah.
Can you tell that some of these are selfish questions that I'm trying to figure out for myself? So,
yeah.
Because I think we probably, I like to think of myself as healthy. I've done a lot of things, but I've caused a lot of, I'm sure the problems that I have are self-inflicted through wearing the wrong shoes for too long and not doing the offsetting skills or work, and I want to win it back.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of other people do, especially as I get older. You mentioned, I'm seeing it in my folks, I'm seeing it in other people.
Yep.
My parents and my in-laws, we have a rule. The rule is the DFF rule. It's the don't fucking fall rule.
I love that.
Don't fucking fall, because it keeps happening to their friends, and it's a scary thing, and I don't want to fall.
I mean, the biggest things to think about with falls is the environment safe, right? Because most falls happen at home. Most are because you tripped over the rug, the pile of magazines, the grandchild's shoe, the dog toy, low light environments. And so there are physical and occupational therapists who are specialized in home safety. And for those of you that have aging parents and are concerned about that, and maybe it feels like a bit of a delicate conversation of like, I don't want to be like, hey, Dad, you're aging. I'm afraid you're going to fall, break a hip, and die. You could be like, hey, we're bringing in this great, home consultation person to help us. That can be very, very powerful. My own grandmother had a fall and passed away 6 months thereafter, like a couple months shy of her 90th birthday. And that fall was the final straw for her.
That's often the case.
She was very healthy before that. And so it is definitely something that fall risk is real. It increases as we age, as we are lucky to get older. But it is, as you said, something that we can combat. And so I think that that's a huge part of the message, that there's so much hope around integrating these pieces of knowledge, these little snacks, these little different topics in order to, help yourself and your loved ones.
Rad. Is that the magic wand that comes from this book? That you impact people in a meaningful way around the world. You're able to touch people to improve their longevity and their health through walking and foot mechanics, et cetera.
Yeah, it's really fun. Dr. Courtney is Italian. And if she was sitting right next to me right now, and I hope she watches this, she would be in tears because she would say, that's the whole point of this project. And she's an amazing practitioner, wears her heart on her sleeve. But it is. I mean, that's the magic wand is take this information, use it for your own good and share it. And that then becomes the big scary goal that I always had, wanting to make a big impact and wanting to do something, that goes out in the world and makes a difference. And I think that this is just the beginning of that conversation.
Rad. Really, really, really cool. Thank you for putting this out in the world for all of us. And I think for inspiring and maybe motivating us to learn more about the power of walking and the real relevance. Again, I'm still trying, kind of reeling from what I'm learning here. I'm I need to be thinking about it very differently than I have historically, which is cool. My wife's got this mastered. My wife's a walker and she totally gets it.
Yeah.
And she's right again. She usually is. If people want to find more about you, the book, Dr. Conley, your practices, et cetera, how do we all find you?
One of the best places to track both of us down is on Instagram. And so you can go to, mine is at Dr. Milicia McDowell, DPT. And my Milicia, thanks mom and dad, is spelled in a very traditional Slavic manner. So it's Milica, becomes Melissa somehow in English. So that's my Instagram. Courtney's is Dr. Courtney Conley, and then the other is at Gait Happens. And those are resources where we share, statistics and things that will inspire you. And hey, let's go for a walk. And here's the walk I'm doing before I hop on an airplane. And dissecting different shoes and talking about different conditions. And, for us, it's really just a opportunity, as you said, and kind of where we started this conversation. There's a lot of experts out there or self-proclaimed experts who maybe are passionate about a topic but aren't necessarily trained in it. And I think that's really where the trolls came out with the 10,000 steps conversation, is people were like, well, I've believed this forever and I've told all my clients this for years and I am standing on this hill and I will die here. And it's like, when you think about science and evidence-based medicine and science and evidence-based health, it's a moving target. Things change. We thought smoking was good for us in the 40s, right? And we now know that that's not a good health choice. And if you're not agile and you're not able to take in new information and adapt it to your environment and change and share things that are science-based, you're kind of falling into that dinosaur category. And so I love that people got a little bit ruffled up by that information. And I hope it just inspires them to be a little better and to, take information that's science-based and new and incorporate it into their lives.
Rad. Well, great way to close it. Dr. Milicia McDowell, thank you so much. This is awesome. Super proud of what you guys are doing. I hope you're having a lot of fun being on lots of podcasts and lots of interviews and getting a lot of attention, because it's really an incredible book and a really good thing for all of us out here to recognize maybe what we didn't recognize before, myself included. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
All right. All right. Was that one okay? You've been on 87 lately.
So
Was that
good.
one
No, I
fun?
loved it. Yeah.